Hello everyone and welcome to today's speaker, Dr. G. Geeta Krishnan sir. He is technical officer in WHO and thanks to all the participants and our speaker for today's session. Over to Geeta Krishnan sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pooja, and thank you, the entire Nirog Street team, for having invited me for this wonderful opportunity to give a lecture on Ayurveda and global market. I think it's a very relevant subject, and to the way in which I understand the way in which Nirog Street has been functioning, creating network of doctors and giving them information and knowledge, creating a knowledge platform, and also supporting them with getting medicines to their hospitals and clinics and even to their patients. I think this is a right approach because probably working in India, you might have realized that there is a global market outside. So with all these possibilities, let us go straight to the subject in hand. Ayurveda and global market is a very interesting subject. Many people are interested. In fact, when we hear about Ayurveda and global market, one of the first things that come to our mind is the possibility of growing like creating a global market like Chinese medicine, or or growing up to the standards and a volume of economy and financial benefits of modern medicine, etc., etc. But we have to realize that there is a huge amount of work and very meticulous, very meticulously planned and executed work which has happened for the success of these two systems of medicine. And if you are in any way trying to emulate that success, one of the first things that we have to do is we have to follow the leader, or we have to follow those people who have succeeded. And at this particular moment, we have a big success story of traditional Chinese medicine in front of us, and even a greater success story of modern medicine ahead of us. So, with this background, I would definitely like to tell you that this is the right moment for us to start discussing about globalization of Ayurveda because of the special context of COVID. COVID has changed the way in which traditional medicine is being looked, especially major medical systems like Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine. Let me say specifically about Ayurveda because Ayurveda has made a greater leap than traditional Chinese medicine during this period, owing to several factors which are geopolitical as well as economic as well as scientific in nature. So, with that statement, I would like to say that World Health Organization is very strongly supportive of traditional medicine. World Health Organization's Director General, Dr. Tedros, on his 4th May address to the on his daily address to the world, he said that all traditional medicines, or either it be traditional medicine or modern medicine, if it is safe and useful to the patient, it should be utilized. There is no difference between a traditional medicine and a modern medicine or any other medicine because all medicine are one, all medicine are for humans, and if it is useful and if it is safe, then it should be utilized. This is the stand of WHO, and there has been several work which is happening across the globe with WHO monitoring. At this particular moment, WHO is not directly involved with the research and development of any drugs from traditional medicine side for COVID, but WHO is closely in connection with almost all entities and nations who are doing research in COVID and gathering information, and at an appropriate period of evidence or a level of evidence, WHO might consider including traditional medicine into the activities. But this is a futuristic possibility because the Director General of WHO had kept the doors open for traditional medicine. COVID as an opportunity for traditional medicine in globalization, especially for Ayurveda, is something which we need to understand. Because the difference between traditional medicine or Ayurveda and modern medicine in India has been completely wiped out as far as COVID is concerned. There is no medicine in either systems. In fact, there is some possible medicine with the idea of what COVID might be in traditional systems of medicine, especially Ayurveda, Unani, or Siddha. Whereas there is no kind of medicine available in modern medicine for the management, treatment, or prevention of COVID-19. And I'm talking about on 14th of July 2020. That's a fact. We know that there are few medicines which have been partially approved, or in some ways completely approved for use in situations where patients might go in conditions where patients might be critical and might be used as a a supportive drug to bring them back to life. But this is not a treatment for COVID. We also know that there are few medicines which have been repurposed and trying to be used in COVID. Some of them have shown some kind of a benefit. Some of them, even though very well hyped, did not have any benefit at all. So that's a stage in which Ayurveda and modern medicine is standing in front of COVID as a big pandemic. And we are trying to address it simultaneously. There is a lot of research work that is happening in Ayurveda as far as COVID is concerned, which is globally being looked upon very keenly. In fact, I understand that the Ministry of Ayush, who is in the forefront of doing all this work, has even plans for taking these studies international. And WHO is very keen in understanding the studies which happens across the country in such activities or in such cases. So what we are seeing is a new dawn and a new dawn of opportunity for Ayurveda, where this before about if you ask me 6 months before what is the primary focus of Ayurveda, we always used to say that it is like communicable diseases, and especially diseases which is not caused by viruses or bacteria, etc. Because at that time we never ventured, or we never had an opportunity to venture into such a space where modern medicine did not claim to have a result or a probable solution. We have been presented with such a solution, and now we realize that we have several areas in such conditions where we can greatly contribute. The 91 different studies which the government of India is supporting itself, which proves the large number of patient loads which they are covering. Probably more than 200,000 people are being treated, or either in prophylactic or in clinical trials for therapeutics across the country in different studies. And this is I'm talking about only those studies which come under the direct supervision and guidance of Government of India. There are several other studies which are happening outside the government of India support process, which are run by private institutions, which are also very encouraging, and which gives some good results also. So this makes or brings Ayurvedic system to at par with modern medicine, and gives us the possibility of thinking beyond non-communicable disease, and think towards viral disorders or antimicrobial resistance, and also being a major force in the prevention and management of communicable diseases. So even if you forget the globalization of Ayurveda, the COVID pandemic had opened a new door which almost was closed for Ayurveda, which is the communicable diseases. And I think this kind of a research will definitely lead to a major jump in the utilization of Ayurvedic medicines and Ayurvedic concepts and therapies in management of communicable diseases, including bacterial or viral diseases. So that's a big gain that we have had due to the COVID pandemic. Nevertheless, let us come to our original subject, which is global market. When we talk about global market, or global market as one single global market, and all these are phrases which people use, but you have to understand that there is no one single global market. There are innumerable number of small markets in different countries, and each of these countries have different criteria for accepting a medicine or not accepting a medicine, or accepting a food supplement or not accepting a food supplement, or accepting a food supplement as a medicine or accepting a medicine as a food supplement. There are umpteen number of permutations and combinations which each of these countries utilize to categorize traditional medicine or herbal medicine or medicine in general, and allows regulatory approval for these for this market to be explored. For in this particular situation, we need to understand that it is not easy for a company to get into the market of all the countries across the globe. There is no such market as a global market. There is a globally available market opportunity, and each of the which is a possibility which allows you to enter into different countries who has different regimes of regulations, and if you are able to follow those regulations, you are able to get a market entry into those countries. Even if you look at the so-called developed world of, let us say, USA, Japan, Germany, and EU, where there is high regulation of medicine, there is no one single categorization which will allow you to get into the market space of every one of them. For example, if you simply because you have a US FDA approval does not mean that you will have entry into a Canadian market or a Japanese market or a European market which goes through the traditional medicine herbal product directive. So, like these all these markets have to be identified separately and looked at separately so that we will be able to enter them properly. But when we talk about global market, we also have to understand that there are services and products which you have to look at. Basically, when we talk about globalization of Ayurvedic market or Ayurveda in the global market, we usually talk about products. But products are not the only thing that Ayurveda has to offer to the world. It also offers services. We will come to that. But before that, let us look at products. Which are the easy countries where we can enter into? Let us, based on the available laws, or for those countries who are following laws within India, how can they enter into different countries? If you look at
Sir,
that,
just a minute, sir. We are not able to see you.
you are not able to see me.
No, from right now, from 2 3 minutes, we are not able to see you. Otherwise, you was there on
Oh, you
screen.
can see me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Probably my
Camera is off, I think.
no, my camera is on. My camera is on.
Okay, okay,
My camera is on.
okay.
What are
Earlier
you?
it was okay. Now we can hear you, but we cannot see you.
My camera is on. I don't know why you cannot see me.
Okay, we can continue.
Yeah, yeah. I think let us continue
Okay,
because
others can see. I think might be problem.
okay. This can see. Oh, that's good. Okay, so let us look at those countries where we can enter into a manufacturing or a manufacturer of Ayurvedic medicine who has all the required certificates in India. Which are the easy countries where you can enter into? I'm not talking about straight away walk into. No doors are open like that. You still have to go through certain regulatory confirmations to enter into any of the country other than India, but you might have less of regulations in few countries. So let us look at them. One of them is, like, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. It gives you a lot of possibility to sell in these markets, and with a lot of market accessibility into these places. It gives you almost, for example, in Bangladesh, the Ayurvedic formulary of India itself is accepted, so it becomes very easy. Then comes countries like Malaysia, and Malaysia has a, like, very very vibrant system of regulation, and their system allows you to register Ayurvedic drugs as Ayurvedic drugs itself, and it is not so costly. So Malaysia is another country which we should look at. Then another group of countries is the entire BIMSTEC countries. Like, you should actually look at the BIMSTEC countries, because the regulations in BIMSTEC countries have been coordinated with India, so that the same regulations apply in both the countries. So it will be easier for us to go through this. And BIMSTEC has a separate single window clearance program, which the government of India will be able to, like, for example, the Ayush Ministry will be able to inform you, or trade organizations or industry organizations like FICCI will be able to offer you the details of. So you should probably try in such areas if you want to try working out with BIMSTEC countries. Other countries which we should be seriously looking at is Australia and New Zealand. I'll go from east to west. Australia and New Zealand, and then the countries like the CIS countries. Especially countries like Serbia. Serbia has accepted Ayurveda as a treatment modality within the government system itself. Then you have Switzerland, where Ayurveda is an accepted medical system, where as an Ayurvedic doctor you can go and practice. Of course, there are few conditions, few certifications, etc., or few conditions that are required, but that are much more easier than many other countries. So Switzerland is one country where Ayurveda has an open possibility of getting practiced by recognized practitioners. Then you have UK, and UK is another place where there are a lot of Ayurvedic practitioners, where Ayurvedic medicines reach, but most of them are being sold in different formats. Most of them are being sold as food supplements, but there are certain herbal supplements also available there. So you should probably look at that, and these are all. I wouldn't say they are completely regulated markets. So there are different regulatory prospectus even in UK. You can go there as a drug. You can go and enter there as a herbal food supplement or a food supplement itself. Which is a much easier way of entering into the market of UK and countries like USA. Then you have UAE, United Arab Emirates, where Ayurveda is accepted as a traditional practice, which you can practice legally and register there. And you have to, only thing is that you have to write an exam there. And once the exam, you have passed through the exam, then the government allows you to practice there as a registered medical practitioner. Another country where there is a huge possibility of Ayurvedic product sales is Oman, where the country is very much culturally very inclusive and accepts Ayurveda as a major system of medicine. There are a lot of people who is interested in Ayurvedic medicine. Companies like Sri Ayurveda has major activities going on in Oman. So Oman is another country which of interest, where when products are being discussed about. USA is one of the biggest markets which we can think about, because USA allows you to get medicines get herbal food supplements in there without any kind of registration process. It is very easy. Only thing is that you cannot make any claim for these herbal food supplements. So you need to be very good at marketing. You need to be in more places. You need to spend on the right kind of advertisements, and you probably will also have to get a lot of legal support, because USA is one place where legal mechanisms can actually drain a lot of money from any company. Not even small companies, even from big companies can be severely damaged through lawsuits in USA. So be very careful when you go there. Do not make any kind of adventurous claims, which of course could damage your reputation as well as your pocket very severely in US. And then you have the CIS countries. One of the best things about the CIS countries, especially the Eastern European countries, is that they, almost all of them, have a strong belief of Ayurveda. Sometimes I have felt that they believe in Ayurveda more than many of our people in India. Such a strong belief in Ayurveda, such a strong cultural ties with India, and a love for Indian products and Indian advice. So CIS is another area where we should actually very seriously look into for selling Ayurvedic products. Whereas when we come to services, we know that it's a phased manner of approach. There are few countries where Ayurvedic services are already approved. Like I said, in Switzerland, it is approved. Has regulatory approval for Ayurveda. Serbia has regulatory approval for Ayurveda. Even in Netherlands, in one way or other, there is a regulatory approval for Ayurveda. And then when we go to UAE, you have regulatory approved Ayurveda. You have Oman, where Ayurveda practice is accepted. Then you have Malaysia. Then of course the countries like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, and our neighboring countries, they all accept Ayurveda. And then you have New Zealand and Australia, where also Ayurveda is accepted as a traditional system of medicine where you can register and practice. And then you also have Singapore, where Ayurveda is an approved system of medicine. Also, some of the countries, some of the states in USA and some of the counties in Canada also allows you to practice Ayurveda with full rights. Like so, there are certain laws which allow this kind of a practice in these countries. Which, if you are venturing into taking services out of India, you need to be very careful and you need to understand the regulation of the specific country where you are going to work. But these are the countries where it is relatively easy, or sometimes very easy, to start your practice of Ayurveda. And when we look at in the general terms of globalization of Ayurvedic services, we have to understand that we have to imbibe yoga as a part of Ayurveda, because that will be the first stepping stone for Ayurveda to enter into many of these countries. I have seen and I have understood that people across the globe, other than sometimes in the educational curriculum within India, people across the globe consider yoga and Ayurveda as inseparably together, and one as an extension of the other. And because yoga is a universal phenomenon now, with billions of followers for it. It is one of the key factors through which we can enter the service sector. And another one, the next step would be following what the Chinese medicine did when they introduced acupuncture before the traditional Chinese medicine itself. We have even a better tool to enter into these countries, which is the marma therapy, like which we don't have to pierce anybody's skin. It is not intrusive. It is very short term. The application of the therapy itself is very short duration, and the effects are immediate. So marma therapy would be the next step in many places. And then, of course, the therapy is administered by practitioners, registered practitioners of Ayurveda in the most appropriate manner. So different kinds of therapy, like academic regimens will have to be established, wherein which different levels of treatment practice or practice has to be established. WHO is in the process of working out with global leaders in Ayurveda in identifying these different kinds of therapeutic levels. In fact, there will be a basic level and advanced level, etc., which we have been discussing with different groups of people, where where these groups of different levels of this practice will have different possibilities to practice. For example, some at the basic level you can practice certain therapy, certain kinds of treatments, certain kinds of specialities, etc. Whereas in advanced level you can treat more, and in specialized level you can treat almost everything, kind of a thing. So we are actually coming to that stage, and most probably World Health Organization will be coming out with a benchmark for training in Ayurveda, a revised benchmark for training in Ayurveda, and a new benchmarks for practice in Ayurveda this year. Also, we will be coming out with a benchmark for training in yoga this year. So it is a very important year for Ayush in WHO. Also, we are coming out with a revised benchmark for Unani training, as well as a new benchmark for Unani practice from WHO. So this is a very important year for Ayurveda in WHO. At the same time, once we have these therapies and these different levels of treatment engaged, then is the time when we can think about serious treatments, which includes treatments for treatment with therapies, including Panchakarma or Kshara Sutra, or even with hospitalized treatment, Rasayana therapies, etc., which has a lot of people coming to India at this particular moment. But the way in which the global community is awakening to Ayurvedic training, and many doctors who are allowed to practice any system of medicine based on their curriculum in many countries. Once you are a registered medical practitioner, you can bring any kind of additional patient care techniques into your practice. So Ayurveda, once there are large number of modern medical doctors outside the country training on Ayurveda, and they all have the legal right to practice Ayurveda in its entirety in their country. Once that comes in, there will be a large number of people practicing Ayurveda, and we should not forget that there could be possibilities of panchakarma, appropriate panchakarma and appropriate hospitalized therapies. Even rasayana therapy is being conducted in different parts of the globe as per the requirement of the community there. We should also keep in mind that one of the important factors for globalization would be research. Research has a major component in it, research as well as publication. We have to have very focused research for this. You should understand that there are two different kinds of research which is possible, which is basic research, which should always be based on, like, it should be preferably based out of university based institutions and professionals who study the basic science of Ayurveda and improve upon the basic science of Ayurveda. Whereas another kind of research could be research for legalizing and getting regulatory acceptance for product and services of Ayurveda, which can be done by clinical institutions across the globe. So this is something which we need to look at, because in this part, when we are talking about globalization and research, most of the research at this particular moment can happen in an integrative platform, because it has to work with other systems of medicine before it can become an independent platform in many of these countries. So the current avenue available for us is integrative research, and if you do it in the right and the focused manner, and we do the right kind of publication to give authenticity to the research and the work we have done, then there will be a lot of takers for Ayurveda across the globe. So this is what I have to talk about Ayurvedic prospectus in global market, especially in the context of COVID. But otherwise, also it is a great opportunity. WHO is keen on getting safe and effective medicines for COVID also, or in other therapies also, into WHO's or global prominence from traditional medicine. We also know that Ayurvedic, when we talk about a global market, it is not one single market that we are talking about. We are talking about innumerable number of different countries who have different kinds of market regulations, but who are open to or ready to accept Ayurveda. And then we have two different kinds of possible globalizing instruments with us. One is products, and the other one is services. Products is what we are focusing on right now at maximum, but products as well as services, if they go together, then the volume of business and volume of and the amount of or the importance or the weightage of importance that Ayurveda gets across the globe will increase. I hope that I was able to give you some kind of an idea or some kind of a glimpse into how globalization of Ayurveda could work, and what are the dimensions of it. I will be happy to take some questions if there are.
Yes, sir. First question is, which are the companies that provide medicines abroad? If anyone is practicing outside India, so medicines from the companies are available over there.
There are many companies who are registered in different parts of the world. So, for example, there are some companies which only export from India, and only what they do is they come to India, they find the right kind of a manufacturer, they request the manufacturer to give them the quality of the product. They, depending upon the certifications, etc., that are required, they will look at the facility of the company, their quality and analysis capabilities, and then decide to have a long-term contract with them. So even there are companies in Europe and in other parts of the world who import raw materials from India as raw materials itself, and manufacture herbal medicine in the respective country and sell it to overcome the regulatory hurdles. So there are different countries, different companies who are manufacturing. I think almost all companies which have some kind of a name in India have one or other kind of an export activity happening. So it is not one single company. It actually is a varied group of companies from across the country who is exporting right now. So I think depending upon your requirement, you have to identify those companies and those facilities which can give you the right volume and the right quality of medicine. That would be important. So that's what I have to say about it.
Uh, there are few questions for the specific countries like Canada, Netherlands, and Switzerland. So, can Ayurveda practitioner practice over there?
Yeah, of course. Ayurvedic practitioners have a possibility of practicing in Canada as a registered practitioner, but you have there is a there are some regulatory issues in Canada to register and completely practice as an Ayurvedic practitioner from the very beginning. So there are few exams and few processes which you have to follow. Uh, and then probably you don't register yourself as an Ayurvedic doctor in the very beginning, and it depends upon which part of Canada you are, that your capability of practicing in Canada or your regulatory acceptance of practicing in Ayurveda in Canada is also. So there are few registered organizations in Canada who can help you out with this. So if you just Google Ayurveda and registrations in Canada, there are one or two organizations which have been established for since some time, and who can give you all the details of how to register and practice in Ayurveda. It's similar with the case in Australia also, Australia and New Zealand. If you go to the website of these organizations, which are practitioners organization, they are ready, and they have the full list of details which will allow you to practice in these countries. I can talk about Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. At the same time, Switzerland has a different situation. Switzerland Parliament has approved Ayurveda as a traditional system of medicine. So an Ayurvedic practitioner can practice Ayurveda as under the regulated system, as long as you get into the approval. We have to go through an approval process. There is an examination involved, but it is quite not so difficult for anybody who had studied Ayurveda well. And there is a language barrier, so you need to know either the Italian, the German, or the French, preferably French, or German, because these are the two. Like German is like the maximum number of people speak German there, but in certain parts of Switzerland, people speak French. But in a small part of like Switzerland, people also speak Italian. So if any of these three languages would be an essential part, because and also if you know German and you are planning to practice in the French-speaking area of Germany, Switzerland, it will become difficult because the decisions are taken on a county level or canton level. So you will have to get these approvals first, and but it is possible. It is much more easier than in any other European country to get in Switzerland and start a practice as an Ayurvedic doctor. There is a huge demand for Ayurvedic practice and services in Switzerland.
And the next question is, what type of strategies are taken by the government for taking Ayurveda to the all corner of the world? Are there any strategies by the government?
Government has several of them. One of them is educating people who want to study Ayurveda from different parts of the world. They give free education to Ayurvedic for students who come for Ayurvedic studies from outside the country. Right now, it is mostly being used by people from Nepal, Bangladesh, or Sri Lanka. But we have to understand that there are other people also, like from Argentina, from Spain, from Switzerland. There are students who come and study here, and once these people go back, they start practicing Ayurveda in their respective countries, and and try to improve the acceptance of Ayurveda in those countries. The government is also in discussion with different countries for getting the acceptance of Ayurvedic products in those countries. Regulatory acceptance. Government is also trying to work with the WHO to create an international herbal pharmacopoeia. International herbal pharmacopoeia will entail that those medicinal plants in the pharmacopoeia, or the compound drugs in the pharmacopoeia, will have the WHO stamp of acceptance, and it will get a much more easy entry into many countries across the globe. So that is another thing which Government of India is doing. Government of India is also supporting the development of these benchmarks, which I spoke about earlier, benchmarks of Ayurveda practice training, Unani practice training, Siddha terminologies, and even yoga training. So these are all ways and ways through which Government of India is trying to establish Ayurveda or Ayush systems as proper medical systems across the globe. And government of India is also individually discussing with institutions, including universities, as well as getting into MOUs with different countries. If I know right, there are the government has MOUs. I mean, government to government MOUs with 18 countries, and another 10 or 11 of them they have institution to institution MOUs. If I know right, they are also in discussion with institutions like National Institute of Health in UK, in USA, and National Health Services (NHS) in UK for collaborative programs and research activities.
Next question is from a student. They are writing, explain the difference between nowadays Ayurveda, herbal, and organic products. These words are commonly used, and students are getting confused. So, how we can differentiate and
It's very simple. All organic products need not be Ayurvedic. But since we say that the entire universe is Aushadha for Ayurvedic doctor, we cannot even make such a claim. But certification wise, all our organic products need not be Ayurvedic products. Whereas it is better and it will be great if all Ayurvedic products turn out to be organic, but it's not so, because of the soil conditions, because of the kind of raw materials being collected, the way in which it is being treated, it is being manufactured. Not all Ayurvedic products can be certified as organic also. So organic is a certification which says how a product was developed, how a product raw materials were cultivated, harvested, kept, and processed. Whereas Ayurvedic medicine is a different classification of medicine. Medicine itself, according to the Drugs and Cosmetic Act of India. But generally, what we should look at is, if generally for an Ayurvedic practitioner, we should primarily be looking at medicines which are available in the Ayurvedic Formulary of India, or the Ayurvedic Pharmacopoeia of India, or in the Brihatrayee of Ayurveda, or in a Lekhatrayee of Ayurveda. That will be the initial areas where we should be looking at to identify where a medicine something which is being claimed as a medicine is a medicine of Ayurvedic origin or not. For example, if there is a Chinese medicine which is coming, which is also a herbal medicine, but not available in India, and not even mentioned in Ayurvedic textbooks, cannot become an Ayurvedic medicine, because it is not part of an Ayurvedic textbook, Ayurvedic traditional knowledge, etc. Or even something coming from Brazil, or even something coming from Africa, need not be an Ayurvedic medicine, because it might not be present in the Ayurvedic literature, or has not been studied according to the Ayurvedic conditions, or even not even registered as an Ayurvedic medicine. So at this particular moment, we have to the easiest way is to see whether you have a license which is claiming it to be, or stating that it is an Ayurvedic medicine. If you don't have a license, etc., but you are just looking at trying to find out the difference between organic material, organic food, organic substances, and Ayurvedic medicine, then you have to just remember that all organic substances need not be Ayurvedic medicine. So the other way around also, all Ayurvedic medicine need not be organic stuff, but organic stuff can also include food and other material. But Ayurvedic medicines are usually medicines, and it preferably should be prescribed by an Ayurvedic physician, or somebody who knows or is regulatorily accepted to be allowed to practice Ayurveda.
Thank you, sir. And the next question is, Ras Aushadhi are allowed in other countries? Like any specific Ayurvedic medicines are not allowed? Is there anything like that?
Ras Aushadhis at present have a major problem, because it's all a issue of convincing the people that it is not toxic, etc. But because Ras Aushadhis contain invariably heavy metals, sometimes mercury, sometimes arsenic, etc. We have not been able to convince the different countries across the globe that they are safe to be used. So in that manner, if you want to use Rathaushadis, we will have to first of all accept that Ayurvedic medicines can have side effects. It cannot be used without the prescription of an Ayurvedic doctor. It should not be used throughout your life, or since it is not like it is not like once an Ayurvedic doctor prescribes a drug, it doesn't mean that you have to continue using it throughout your life. Like this I am very specifically saying because one of the strongest recent details regarding Rathaushadis, misuse of Rathaushadis, came from Australia, when the Australian FDA identified that about 6 or 7 pregnant women had lead poisoning, or some of them even had mercury poisoning because they were using Ayurvedic medicines. But then my contention is, these medicines, which when we look at it, we find that these medicines could have been prescribed not for more than 1 week, or like not for more than maybe 10 days by an Ayurvedic practitioner, because it's not necessary to prescribe it more than that. It is like and we come to know that these medicines have been used over more than 3 months to 6 months by this patient. So it is the false impression among the public that all Ayurvedic medicines are safe, and you can eat whatever you want, like however much of a quantity, nothing will happen, which is wrong. And in one way, we are also responsible for creating this understanding or misconception among the people. So we have to correct it, and we have to be responsible citizens and responsible practitioners and scientists and researchers and educationists, so that we should be able to accept and say that if unnecessarily used, or Ayurvedic medicine should not be used without a prescription, and if it is used, then it can cause harm. So this is something which we have to come to terms with. And once we do that, then our next question of convincing people that small, like very specific use of Rathaushadhi is not going to harm you will work. I can give you an example. Like somebody in a ICU with a severe infection of bacterial origin or septicemia might be given amikacin as an injection, and it is an excellent drug, and it's one of the best antibiotics that you have, a very strong antibiotic. And in about 5 to 7 days to 15 days, the patient is completely relieved of the infection. Now, because this patient who was almost dying got amikacin and was treated with and brought back to life with amikacin, we don't give amikacin to the patient for the next 6 months, because within 1 month the patient will die because of amikacin. So that's exactly the same thing. There is a specific time and specific time and occasion where you can use strong medicines, and Ayurvedic doctors should be responsible enough to understand that and inform the public. Once we start doing it, then it becomes easier for us to claim, saying that that we have strong medicines, but over a short period of time, it is to be given at a particular stage of disease. And if it is given at a particular stage of disease and time for a short period of time, it doesn't cause any harm. That everyone will understand.
Thank you, sir. Next, last question we will take. What could be the role of Ayurveda in this pandemic, like COVID-19? How we can see the Ayurveda can play a role in this pandemic?
There is a major work happening across the country as far as Ayurveda as a prophylactic for COVID management, and there are several studies which are happening based on that. In fact, there is this Ayush Sanjeevani app which is collecting more than 50 lakh people's data on their use of Ayush products in the prophylactic activity of COVID. But more than that, there are specific clinical trials which are going on, which includes a population of more than 200,000 people from across the country, means 2 lakh people across the country in different zones, means those people who are exposed to COVID patients or exposed to COVID infection, these people are getting prophylactic treatment, and then we are actually trying to find out how effective it is in comparison to those people who of similar conditions but not getting this kind of a treatment. In another situation, in therapeutic area, in mild and moderate cases, there are a lot of Ayurvedic medicines which are happening right now. The one of the there are the integrative practices are there where patients are being treated along with modern medicine in few hospitals across the country. There are independent Ayurvedic treatment which is being taken in asymptomatic and like mildly symptomatic patients in certain Ayurvedic hospitals, which are also COVID centers, which includes Chaudhary Brahm Prakash Hospital or in Delhi, or even the All India Institute of Ayurveda Hospital in Delhi. So there are several hospitals which are taking care of asymptomatic COVID positive but asymptomatic but mildly symptomatic patients. And and then if I understand right, the government of the Ayush Ministry is strongly pulling all strings to make sure that Ayurvedic treatment is integrated into the COVID management protocol, national COVID management protocol very soon. So I hope that we could hear some good news in the next 10 to 15 days, and that would actually change the way in which Ayurveda will be supporting COVID management in the country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I think we should conclude the session.
Yeah,
Thanks to you, and thanks to all the participants for joining us and taking out the time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.